Before we go any further with our course material, there are two major concepts that we need to get familiar with so that we can work with them as we go through the quarter. This video will take you through the first concept. The second video, one after this, will take you through the second concept. So here is the first concept that we have to think about. When we notice numbers, it's important to figure out what type of number we are noticing. And as it happens, a number is not just a number, is not just a number. There are actually 4 types of numbers. And we need to know which type of number we are working with in order to use it appropriately. Right. The first kind of number is nominal. What that means is the value of the number is completely irrelevant. I'm just using it for sorting. Here's an example. You've been in class and the professor says, count off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1's here, 2's there, 3's there, 4's there, 5's there, right? In this case, 5 is not 5 times 1 and 4 is not double of 2. The number doesn't mean anything as a number. It's nominal. I could have used A, B, C, D, E. I could have done anything like that. Now, very often when we use data, you're going to see gender is nominal. I'll do 1 for female, 2 for male. The 1 and the 2 don't mean anything. I'm just sorting my data. So we'll often use nominal when we're sorting our data. So keep that in mind. The second kind of number is ordinal. This number just means the rank order. So think about gold medalists. Who came first? Who came second? Who came third? 1, 2, 3 is just the order. But I'm not saying that 1 was how much better than 1 than 2 1 was, and I'm not saying how much better than 3 2 was. It could be that the differences are different, they're very small or they're very large, but basically it's a rank ordering. Sometimes when we're looking, for example, at country data, we use rank orderings to see which countries are doing better or worse, and sometimes those numbers are just rank orderings. They don't necessarily mean that you are twice as good, means that you are doing 2 times as many courses in your educational attainment than someone else when we're looking at country data. Another kind of number is interval. In this, the units do matter, but I don't have a 0. Think about this. I can measure temperature as Fahrenheit or as centigrade. What matters is, like when I say so many degrees Fahrenheit, what matters is the distance between 1 Fahrenheit, 2 Fahrenheit, 2 Fahrenheit, 3 Fahrenheit, and so on. And on this side, it's the difference between 1 centigrade, 2 centigrade, 3 centigrade, 4 centigrade, and so on. They both measure temperature. Their zeros are set at different points. So you can see that this is an interval scale. In interval scales, you can do addition and subtraction, but you can't do multiplication and division. Right? For that, you need a ratio scale. Now, there are going to be some things where we use interval scales, where the distance matters, but we don't really have a clear 0. Sometimes when you're using something like a development index, the distance matters, but I'm not saying the country that did worst is a 0, right? It's still attaining something. So the zeros can be set differently, but the distances do matter. So I want to be able to say that this country has twice the GDP of that country. But I'm not saying that that country has 0 GDP, because no country has 0 GDP. So that's an interval scale. And then sometimes we are going to use ratio scales. In ratio scales, not only does the distance matter, you have an absolute 0, and the 0 is set. Let me give you an example. Heights. When I measure your height, I'm actually measuring with 0 on the floor, and then I'm measuring your heights up and down. So for height, the 0 is set at floor level. I can't just start it here or start it there. So for that kind of stuff, I can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. For temperature, for example, the Kelvin scale is the one that has an absolute 0. So when you want to do conversions and things like that, it's better to use the Kelvin scale than to use others. So these are the 4 kinds of scales: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. And while we'll be using numbers a lot, depending on the question we're asking, we will end up using one or the other of the scales. Thank you.